chapter 289 to 291. But Shikaku reluctantly started again. There were many faults with Team 7. So many he wouldn't mind reshuffling all of the teams if it got rid of these incoming problems. Putting the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, the heir to the Uchiha clan, and the heiress to the Hyuga clan on one team is... Shikaku grimaced. Team 7 was a political team. It wouldn't be bad if there were just two of them, paired with a civilian-born, but all three. People in high positions usually like to look a bit into the future, and if Team 7 was formed like this, there was a high chance they would eventually become friends, which in turn would create a strong political bloc later on when these kids grow up. And that's where the problem laid. Putting together Inoshika-cho was fine. These clans didn't have much ambition other than keeping their current influence. They seldom tried to use the system in order to get a leg up. It was also a known fact these three clans were already allied, so putting them together in a team wouldn't create any future problem in the political sphere that wasn't already present. The same could be said about the Aburame clan. They were simply far too passive for politicians and other clan heads to worry about them. It was a stupid way of thinking because Shikaku still thought the Aburame clan was one of the most dangerous clans in Konoha, both combat-wise and politically, but people simply didn't see it that way. They were too used that the Aburame just stoically sat in their place and wordlessly observed the happenings without much input. In the team setup Shikaku previously made, he planned to pair Hinata, Kiba, and Shino because of that reason. Shino was the Aburame her. Kiba was an Inuzuka, and they were far too brash and not exactly clever, so nobody took them all that seriously. Plus, he was not the heir, which meant even if he got along with his team, there would be no extremely strong political alliance later on. The only issue with that setup was Hinata Hyuga, who would almost certainly become a big political figure in the future. Then again, two heirs, where one was from a clan that didn't have that much influence. That was the limit for Shikaku. But Team 7, as Tsunade envisioned it, that was a political disaster just waiting to happen. Sasuke Uchiha, the last loyal Uchiha, the heir to the Uchiha clan, might have lost a lot of influence considering his own clan was non-existent anymore. But the kid was now a part of the top 5 wealthiest people in Konoha since every account previously belonging to an Uchiha now belonged to the kid. He also had a clan library full of jutsu for himself. Simply put, if Sasuke played his cards right and became at least elite jonin, he could one day be a very influential person in Konoha despite lacking the influence of a fully functioning clan. Shikaku didn't think the Uchiha clan could quickly rise again. It would take at least 50 years for them to be sufficiently recreated, and that would only be the case if Sasuke decided to be proactive in that regard. God knew there were many morons in Konoha Council that would like nothing more than Sasuke becoming a sex beast focused on impregnating their daughters. Many would like to have a shot at a portion of the wealth of the kid, after all. But the Uchiha kid was the least of Shikaku's worries. He was like Kiba, unimportant. The real problems were Hinata Hyuga and Naruto Uzumaki. Hinata. In Team 7, she would have access to two heirs who will, later on, become influential. Coupled with the Hyuga clan's influence, Shikaku could already see some of the smarter councilmen having a problem with this setup. As for Naruto, people knew only that he is a Jinchuriki and that he is recognized as a part of the Senju clan. Being a Jinchuriki, that alone would make him a focus of higher-ups. Shikaku was supremely glad nobody knew the kid was the heir to the Uzumaki clan and the son of the fourth. How nobody put 2 and 2 together, he would never know. But this stupidity of Konoha's citizens was certainly convenient. If people found out the real political weight Naruto will one day carry, Shikaku had no doubt they would stop at nothing in order to prevent his placement on the team with Hyuga Princess and Uchiha heir. Together, these three could create a political bloc that would totally suppress anybody who didn't agree with them. Shikaku glanced at Tsunade. And all three of them are under the tutelage of Anko Mitarashi, who is the apprentice to Tsunade. He inwardly cringed. God, am I glad that the Nara clan is allied to the Senju clan. If people had any idea what kind of frightening political moves this blonde menace is casually throwing around, I wouldn't be surprised if the Konoha's clans tried to pull the Uchiha move on us and all rebelled. He dryly thought. Sure, since Tsunade became the daimyo, the influential people in Konoha lost quite a bit of their pull, but Tsunade made sure to leave a lot of influence in their hands to keep them satisfied. Clans and councilors loved their influence. The formation of a political bloc that could suppress them to a degree where they wouldn't be able to take a shit without permission was something they would surely take offense at. Yet Tsunade was seemingly doing exactly that, with no one the wiser. Senju, Uzumaki, Uchiha, Hyuga, Nara, and through my clan, she also gets the Yamanaka and Akimichi. I have no doubt she could get the Aburame clan on board too if she tried. Shikaku thought with a suppressed shudder at the political web the woman was slowly creating. What? Would you like it better if I put Haruno in there instead of Hyuga? Tsunade asked with no small measure of sarcasm in her tone, pulling Shikaku out of his thoughts. His eyebrows instantly furrowed when he heard her question, but his real reason was a short choking session as his spit got caught in his throat. Hell no! Shikaku exclaimed as he finally managed to stop choking. Right now, we are dealing with a political disaster. Swapping Hinata for Haruno is a totally new kind of catastrophe. He snorted. Now I worry about the reactions of the clan heads and the politicians you so magnanimously allowed to keep their influence. If Haruno was a part of Team 7, however, I would have to worry about their life expectancy. I will take political worries rather than that any day of the week, you troublesome blonde, he replied indignantly, despite knowing he couldn't put Haruno in that team anyway. Tsunade created many programs for the academy, and Haruno Sakura ended in one of them. The girl had superb chakra control, but other than that, she was useless. That was mostly because of her naivety and kiddie fantasies, but still, she was not cut out to be a kunoichi. Not unless she grew up a bit. Putting her in Team 7, a team that will undoubtedly be an assault-focused team, would have been a seppuku-worthy mistake. As such, the girl ended up in the medical program, and once she graduated, she would be an apprentice under one of the medic ninjas in Konoha's hospital. She would be in a safe environment, contributing to the village by doing things she had a talent for. Thought so. Tsunade smugly said, In that case, what the heck are you still complaining about? Team 7 will be, as I said it will be. Stop trying to change my mind, Shikaku. We, she glanced at the sheepish Yoshino, all know that you just want to talk me out of it because you are too lazy. She rolled her eyes and gestured at him to continue with the teams before taking a sip from her tea. Next we have the Inoshikacho trio. Shikaku stated with open fondness as he mentioned the team his kid would be joining, making even Yoshino break her professional demeanor and smile a bit. If it was previously, I would have protested, but now... Shikaku trailed off. He still remembered how lazy his own son was when he was a kid. Since Shikamaru was 6, Shikaku could see that putting him, Ino, and Choji together would not improve them as a unit as it happened for him, Inoichi and Choza. The personalities of their kids were simply far too alike. Shikamaru was lazy, resulting in the lack of motivation to even attempt to get better at the necessary things. Choji didn't want to hurt a fly, resulting in the very same thing as Shikamaru and Ino. Ino might have seemed to be an exuberant and active girl that loved to tackle problems head-on and could motivate both Choji and Shikamaru into doing their best, but Shikaku met the girl almost every other week during the Ino-Shikacho clan gatherings. The girl had no interest in being a kunoichi whatsoever. She simply wasn't raised to want to be a kunoichi. Inoichi spoiled her far too much. The girl also didn't have a reality check that is usually delivered to clan children. Shikamaru was putting down old and sick deer since he was 6, and Shikaku knew that Choza also had Choji kill pigs since that age, to start teaching him about the importance of life and prepare him for the harsh realities of ninja life. Ino didn't have that. But Shikaku couldn't really fault him much. He also spoiled Ino quite a lot, not wanting to see these innocent blue eyes to peer at the cruel side of the world. Shikaku, however, knew that he couldn't shield the girl from it forever. Then again, she was not his daughter, therefore not his problem. It was exactly this upbringing that destroyed any synergy between Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji. Ino, who was supposed to be the glue and motivator of the team, simply lacked motivation herself, therefore was unable to properly motivate Shikamaru and Choji. When she tried to get them to do something, she mostly irritated them with her high-pitched voice and bossy attitude rather than using her Yamanaka subtle emotional bullying to manipulate them like the previous Yamanakas in the Ino-Shika-Cho trio did. This resulted in the three children kinda drifting apart during their younger years. Ino became Sasuke's fangirl, befriending other girls in the academy, while Shikamaru hanged out mostly with Choji, separating themselves from their classmates. When their kids were 9, Inoichi, Shikaku, and Choza were already prepared to break the tradition and not make the Ino-Shika-Cho team out of them. Fortunately, Tsunade's reforms in the academy straightened the kids out, much to the pleasure of their parents. Shikaku couldn't help but be immensely grateful for that. Raising a ninja was hard, more so for the parent rather than for the child. Children had a miraculous ability to adapt, but no parent liked to see their child suffer the adaptation process. Or so Shikaku would like to believe, despite knowing he was wrong. Neither Choza, Inoichi, or him had the necessary predisposition to push their children hard enough to make them excel. Shikaku didn't want to see Shikamaru crying tears of blood due to their special clan training for kids. Not when he knew how it felt, since his own father put him through it. At that time, Shikaku resented his father for quite a bit of time, but when he grew up, he realized it was precisely that training that helped him to survive the Third Ninja War. But that was a different time. A time of unease and war. Now that peace was here, Shikaku was hesitant to make Shikamaru go through the same experience. Choza was much the same. Shikaku could still remember how Choza was walking with his body constantly riddled with black and blue bruises, getting new ones every day. Shikaku doubted Choza wanted to make Choji go through that training. The Akamichi clan's early training was pure physical hell. As for Inoichi, he was blessed and cursed at the same time. He had a girl. Shikaku couldn't even imagine how hard it was on Inoichi. How could he make his princess go through the necessary suffering? All three of them were in a bind, and in the end, they decided to not make their kids go through their own experiences. But then, Tsunade reformed the academy, doing their job for them when it came to training the kids. Shikaku doubted that most of the kids even noticed that their exercises were getting more and more demanding, as the learning curve was not all that steep. The fast pace of exercises made up for that, and so the graduating class was actually already at least genin level according to the previous standards, while the kids got the necessary habits for ninjas. Habits like the need for self-improvement. Hence, Team Ino-Shika-Cho was a go. Shikaku's lips suddenly turned into a frown. I actually received a request from Asuma Sarutobi for the Ino-Shika-Cho team, but I refused. That guy is lazy as heck, and I am afraid the kids could relapse back into their old habits under his watch. It was a shame, too, in Shikaku's opinion. Asuma was one of the elite jonins of the village, and was a very talented man. The problem was, he simply didn't want to put in more effort than strictly necessary. Shikaku could already deduce what would have happened with his and his friends' kids under Asuma's tutelage. They would simply get lazy again, noticing Asuma's habit of taking things easy. The problem with that was, Asuma already achieved the necessary strength threshold and only had to maintain his body fit. The kids, however, needed a lot of work to get to that point, and being lazy now could prevent them from reaching their potential later on. Hearing about Asuma, Tsunade inwardly groaned. Asuma and Shizune married a year ago. Not a happy occasion for Tsunade, as she still didn't like the young Sarutobi. But she relented and blessed their union as Shizune's mentor. What else could she have done? It was either grit her teeth and let her young apprentice do whatever foolish thing she wanted, or distancing herself from Shizune even more than they already were. Tsunade simply chose to let Shizune make her own choices. Surprisingly, Asuma was shaping up to be quite a good husband, much to Tsunade's ire. She still didn't like him, though. At least her newest apprentice, Kurenai, was averted from the dark side and persuaded that Asuma was not as cool as she always thought. But damn if that didn't take a lot of subtle manipulations. "Who is getting this team?" Tsunade asked in an attempt to change the topic and distract herself from thinking about Asuma. "Yugao Uzuki. I pulled her out of Anbu just for this." Shikaku answered with a tired sigh. It took him quite a lot of persuasion to make Yugao accept. That meant Ino Shikacho will still get their Jinin test from their Jonin teacher, but unknown to them, they would pass no matter what. And then, welcome to hell. They might not focus on Kenjutsu, but I think a watered-down ANBU-style training would do them good considering the Ino Shikacho specialty. I see. Yugao must have been happy. Training the Hokage's son is quite an honor. Tsunade offhandedly remarked, doing it more to annoy Shikaku because she knew that the woman would vehemently protest being separated from her lover, Hayate. Shikaku didn't deem that remark with a reply, knowing it was smarter to be quiet as he remembered the passive anger seeping out of Yugao as he gave her her new orders. "You want me to train some spoiled, lazy gits?" was her cold reaction. To be fair, Shikamaru was not that spoiled. At least Shikaku would like to believe that, but then he remembered how other clan kids were trained during their youth. Anyway, let's move on. Team 8, Inuzuka Kiba, Aburame Shino, and Kurama Yakumo under the tutelage of Kurenai Yuhi. Shikaku read aloud from the file before looking at Tsunade. "Are you sure about letting Kurenai lead a team? She is your apprentice, so wouldn't this take a big chunk of her training time?" In reply, Tsunade could only helplessly smile. "Kurenai has a special past with the Yakumo Heiress, and she spent the past 2 months begging me for this team. It was annoying me beyond reason. I guess not even you are exempt from problems with pupils," Shikaku amusedly quipped, understanding the problem. It was almost like some unspoken rule that high-ranking people usually trained people with high potential. These people, however, were most of the time quite problematic. The 3 Sanin were the best example where even the 3rd Hokage couldn't do much about their behavior. The 4th Hokage had Kakashi Hatake, and now Tsunade had Kurenai and Anko. Anko was, well, Anko. She was obsessed with her revenge against Orochimaru, and that was a problem in itself. Then there was her usual behavior, and honestly, Shikaku didn't envy Tsunade. Anko's behavior might have improved drastically since she became a part of the Senju clan, but she still wasn't a good representative. She was one of those people parents told their children to never imitate. Despite that, Shikaku had to admit that since Tsunade started seriously training Anko a few years ago, the Snake Mistress became one of the most valued secret assets of the village. Her potential was astonishing. Shikaku didn't delude himself into thinking he knew the full picture either. He was only aware of what Tsunade allowed him to know, and even that was enough to raise Anko's value quite high and make sure nobody found out about it. As for Kurenai, I still remember how annoyed Tsunade was when she had to beat feminism out of Kurenai. Shikaku mirthfully thought. Kurenai had major hidden inferiority issues, believing she had to show the worth of kunoichi to the world. This helped her to gain motivation to reach a high Chunin level, but after that, this kind of mental state was mostly just a hindrance. From Jonin and up the power scale shot towards the sky, and male or female, ninja or kunoichi, gender didn't matter anymore. Knowing that, Tsunade had to set Kurenai's mentality straight and decided to do so in a Tsunade-like manner. by beating Kurenai up until her head understood the lesson. Well, Kurenai still hated perverts, but at least she now didn't think every male except Sarutobi Asuma was a pig. Shikaku could actually put Kurenai on a team that was not solely composed of females these days, and took it as a major improvement in the girl's temperament. Sometimes, Shikaku wondered why the most talented people were also the most eccentric ones. Why couldn't everyone just realize the greatness of sleep and lazing around? Wouldn't it be best if instead of wars, the nations solved their problems with shogi matches? Shikaku sighed. Maybe I should conquer the world and show the people the correct path? His face then thoughtfully scrunched for a second before slacking into his usual lazy and tired expression. Nah, too troublesome. I think it will be a good experience for Kurenai. Yakumo is also a budding genius in genjutsu, so they might be a good inspiration for each other, Tsunade dryly said, having enough of this topic. Kurenai at first saw Yakumo as a daughter, and her motherly instincts were messing up with her head so much that Tsunade had to step in, otherwise the Yakumo heiress would not be trained properly, but pampered. If she didn't have to deal with any problem pertaining to Team 8 in the immediate future, Tsunade would be delighted. One can dream, she wistfully thought. Was this how Rei and Konan felt when they trained Ringo and Mei? I don't see any major problem with Team 8. Kiba Inuzuka will probably try to become the alpha of the team, as is commonly seen in Inuzuka ninjas. The file stated he is quite unrestrained with his behavior, but Kurenai, with her special brand of dislike for his kind, will probably rein him in quite fast. Shikaku shuddered and pitied the young boy who liked to let his instinct decide his actions. Shino Aburame is calm and level-headed with a great analytical mind. His insects will also fit right in with 2 genjutsu users and 1 taijutsu-oriented fighter. It was a good composition. A bit lacking in ninjutsu, but if used correctly, they would be superior in subtle warfare. Neither Yakumo nor Shino should clash with Kiba personality-wise either. Shikaku nodded and stamped his approval on the file. Tsunade watched in distaste as that happened. In the whole roster of the new teams, Team 8 was the only one that irked her. In an ideal world, Tsunade would forbid Kurenai from taking a team and focus on improving her strength. The woman had the potential to reach the level of the second Mizukage with her genjutsu, and Tsunade wanted her to be the next Hokage. She had no delusions that Shikaku would stay in the office for a long time. The Nara clan head clearly disliked his current place in life, and most likely only went along with Tsunade's plans because of the respect he had for her and the Senju clan. That meant Tsunade had to prepare for the day when he had had enough. Unfortunately for Tsunade, she had only 2 choices as of now: Anko and Kurenai. There had to be no discussion about Anko. As long as that woman never came anywhere close to the Hokage seat, the citizens of Konoha could live happily. That left only Kurenai, and while there were many issues with her, Tsunade had to admit that every ninja had their own special quirks. Letting Kurenai take in a team was actually also a way to train her, and that's why Tsunade relented in the end. Shikaku and Tsunade then spent the next few hours coursing through more teams. Unlike the time when the third Hokage was in the office, the concept of dropping out of the academy was almost non-existent. There were 3 graduating classes, and everyone graduated. While only half of these kids were assigned to a team with a Jonin sensei, that was still enough to create around 15 teams. It took time to sort through all of them and discuss the compatibility of the kids while suggesting reshuffling and improvements. That was not even mentioning the other half of the graduates that were directly assigned to a department. These were the kids that ended up like Sakura Haruno, and their career was mostly decided as they were sent to be apprenticed under specific departments due to their talents. These were not supposed to be field ninjas. If these kids wanted to be a part of Konoha's ninja force, they had to train in their spare time and request a trainer or reassignment when they got competent enough. Still, 6 years ago, from these 3 graduating classes, barely 3 to 5 teams would be passed. Now there were 15, and all the graduates were actually trained enough to be competent. Shikaku had to admit that Konoha improved quite a lot during the time Tsunade was in charge. His eyes trailed to a file in the trash bin, the same file that Hiruzen Sarutobi politely handed him. It was a team setup the old man thought would be best for the village. Hiruzen didn't have much, if any, political influence in the village nowadays, but nobody could say the old man didn't try to influence certain things. That's actually where his joke of putting Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto together came from. Shikaku knew most would pay the document a lot of attention because, despite everything, the former third Hokage still held a lot of respect in the village. But he also knew Tsunade would bash his head through his office table if he tried to implement Hiruzen's team setup, so Shikaku did the smart thing and threw it away the second the door closed behind Hiruzen. Better not think about it. Getting mixed up in the silent war between these old fogies will just reduce my nap time.